Hi, I'm Natalie, and I'm going to walk you through making this really cute roll-up situation we've got here. I haven't even named this pattern yet. Right now, I use mine for the last few years. I've used it to store my crochet hooks, but I made my daughter one, and she puts her makeup brushes in it. It is a very simple pattern, but we're going to have little add-ons such as the quilting of the foam and patchwork ties. Just to spice it up a bit and show you some of the possibilities. Now, let me get a few things straight right off the bat. I won't be giving measurements in this tutorial because this is a PDF pattern at SoHungryHippie.com. If you're part of the Anna Maria Box Club, your pattern will be inside your box, so please reference that for measurements. Number 2, a lot of times I have to bring my iron over so you can see it on camera as to what I'm doing. I use this wool mat for now, but let me just say, no, I don't recommend that you iron on top of your cutting mat. The only reason we do this is so you can clearly see what's happening. And I go through cutting mats. I probably buy 3 new cutting mats every couple of months. So to me, this is not a deal breaker because I'm going to need a new one soon anyways. So you do you. I don't need an email or a comment about that. Secondly, anything that I'm pieceworking, patchworking, whatever you want to call it, you don't have to do that. You can use one solid fabric and that's absolutely fine. In the Anna Maria box, some of you will get the exact same fabrics that I'm using. Others will get different colorways. Everything will be from the Piecework Anna Maria collection. Okay, but it might not be exactly the same as mine. All right, as for the foam interfacing that I'm using Bayani Soft and Stable. It's what works for me best. You can use whatever you like. As I always say, a pattern is a guide. You do you. And I'm gonna put up my hair. It's early Saturday morning and I just cannot stand hair on my neck right now. So let's get into this. I'm going to take you overhead. Here's my outer fabric. Here's my foam. I like to center it. I have a little bit of an edge here. I could probably trim this down a little more, but it's fine for me. A lot of times I leave my foam inside my seam allowances. If you don't want it in there, you can trim down your foam even more. The most important thing is we want to make sure that whatever we're quilting is covered and has the foam underneath. So I like to iron mine. If you're not confident with ironing the fabric to the foam and quilting it by itself, you can use my trick, which is the 505 spray. And it'll temporarily adhere to the foam. All right, so now it sticks and we can go ahead and quilt this. Now, I'm just going to get myself set up here so I'm not tripping over cords. And again, we're not going to quilt the lining portion. This is just the exterior fabric and the foam. I'm going to use Gutermann thread and I'm going up to a 3.2 stitch length. And away we go. And I can have Ramel fast forward this for y'all. We'll do a couple rows and then fast forward. What I like about this print is because of these straight lines, I can just follow it with my needle. On my first crochet roll, as I call it, I quilted really tight lines like this, just using the width of my foot. And I super love the look of it. You, however, can quilt whatever design you fancy, whatever you want. I do take mine out and start at the beginning every time because I've had too much experience when I turn and go the other way of the fabric just slightly shifting and becoming wonky. So this is what works for me. You can do whatever works for you. I also am just using my regular sewing foot. I did not put on my walking foot. If that's something you want to do, please go ahead. I will say, if you feel like things are shifting a little bit, just take it to the ironing station and iron it. Give it a press. The layers will smooth out and you can continue quilting. See that? If you think you want to add more 505, like I didn't hit it there very well, you can. Sometimes what I'll do with 505 is spray it and then press it. All right, let's continue quilting. See how the texture is just so pretty. All right, I'm gonna give that a quick press. Now I'm going to trim it up, make sure everything is straight. Sometimes after quilting, things can get a little wonky. There we go, that looks good. Okay, more or less good. So now we're going to fold this in half and make a crease. If you need to iron it, you can. And then lay the foam in here to about touch that crease, just nearly touch the crease. You should have a little left over down here as well. Fold this over. All right, so now we've got that foam sandwich. So the pocket is folded and the foam is inside. Now first up, I'm gonna top stitch along that fold. Okay, got a nice fold. Now you can baste or just turn it up to a 4 or so. And this is to help us put the whole thing together. We're just holding these layers down. This won't show at the end. kicked me off there. Okay. So now we're going to take our lining piece. Let's see here. I really should probably interface this. Fabric usually behaves better when it's interfaced. So let me get some scrap SF101 or whatever is closest to that for you. A lightweight interface, it's lightweight. Fusible. This is fusible. This is all you need. Okay. My iron. Yes, it is on high heat. The only time I turn down my iron temperature is if I'm sewing silk or chiffon, something like that, where you can melt the fibers. I use high heat for everything else, even when I'm fusing interfacing to the back side of vinyl. I never change it. All right. You can see it kind of stretches, so I will need to trim that away or it'll drive me nuts. So I'm going to move that. And just trimming the excess interfacing away here. All right, there we are. Now we're going to place the pocket on. Now the size of the pockets is really your choice. I like to make the pockets pretty small because I do use this for makeup brushes or crochet sticks. I can't think of the word. So what you're going to do is put that top stitch line up like this. Up. And then what I want you to do is raise this up from the bottom just a scant 1/4 inch, scant, because we do want to catch this stitching when we put the top on here. Okay, so I think this is good for me. Now I am going to use pins to hold these layers in place. Just a couple. And then what I'm going to do is use my hero marker to measure my pocket pieces. Now from that first stitch line, I come over 1.5 inches. So I put my pin in the exact spot. I have to move it a little bit here. And this is not my normal hero marker. Where is my... Here we go. That one was a letter opener. Somebody thought that was a hero marker, I guess. Okay, there is one. Now I'm going to come over 1 inch, another inch. Now you can do one at a time. You can mark them all at once, whatever you want to do. You can make them bigger than 1 inch. Let's make this middle one, let's do 1.5 inches. And now I'll go back down to 1 inch. Let me do 1.5 inches again. Again, this is just your whimsy. You could also make this for paintbrushes, crayons, colored pencils, really whatever you want. Okay, and then this one I'm just going to sew to finish up that last pocket there. Okay, I'm gonna move this. Now the way I like to sew is starting from the bottom and going up. Usually that's what I do. On this one, however, I'm gonna start at the top and go back and forth a few times for security and sew off. Because this will not show at the end, it's okay if there's a wrinkle down here. It'll be hidden later. But make sure you do go back and forth on this a few times. That is the place where there's a lot of stress on the pocket when in use. I gotta turn my stitch length back down just under 3. I'm gonna go back and forth a couple of times there, and then sew right on that crease. See that? Now, if you're having trouble seeing your hair marker sections or lines, then just do one at a time, it's fine. That one. And now I'm just going to sew this side down. Okay, so now I've got to work the other direction. Here's a crease. If you keep most of your back stitching on the busy fabric, it's not noticeable. Try not to hop off too much onto that grape color or whatever your lining is. Sometimes I have to feel the para marker on a busy fabric. There it is. All right, and I'm just going to sew this side down. Take out my pin. Cool, now I've got my pockets all made all the way across, and I'm going to trim my threads. These top ones are the ones you have to trim. The bottom doesn't matter, it'll get hidden. Okay, I am going to press. Lots of pressing when I sew. It just really makes a difference. Now, as you can see, our pocket has some oomph. It's cushiony because we use that foam. I love that. Okay, now eventually we're going to lay our top fabric on top, right? And sew all this together. But we need to add our ties first. So I have grabbed these pieces. Looks like I do need to press them quickly. Now these aren't long enough to be ties. So I'm gonna trim and then sew them together. So there's enough for one section. There's enough for another section. And I'm gonna place these two short ends right sides together and sew, and the same for this. So let's go to the machine and do this. There's that one. Right sides together. The seam allowance doesn't really matter. I just use my foot, all right? Now we've got two of these, and I'm gonna sew this one to this one. Now, this is way long, but it's okay. I'd rather just get them all together for right now. And then I can trim them to the size I need for the ties. So this is what I do. All right, let's bring our iron back over. And I like to iron my seams to the darker side of the fabric. I don't split them open in a project like this because it just lessens the strength. See how this one, I'm gonna push it over towards the purple. I don't wanna see any shadowing from the lighter fabric. Okay. Now let's fold it in half like this, just to make a crease. You know what we're gonna do. Then we take each long edge in to meet the crease and press again. If you have a handy little bias tape gadget, you can put that through, put this whole strip through and create this in a jiff. But I'm going to show the old school method since a lot of us don't have all those gadgets and tools. And this can be very relaxing. Don't try to do this in a hurry. Anytime I try to hurry when I sew, I mess it up. So I just have to go at my speed, which is probably different than yours. And that's a-okay. I'm gonna keep doing this all the way down the strip, and I'll have Ramel fast forward it so you don't fall asleep. Don't stretch or pull this. All right, we're ready to sew down that open edge first, and then we can sew down the other side just for balance. Now just be mindful that you're not pulling this as we're sewing. The tendency for long items like this when we're sewing, there's like a subconscious thing where we want to pull back on it. Don't do that, or it's going to end up really weird and wonky. Just let the feed dogs do the work. Stop with your needle down and remove clips. You can use matching thread or just use the same. It really doesn't matter. I like looking at my stitches. Okay, so there's the end of that row. Now, this is what I do. I don't feed it in the other way. I go back to the beginning and turn it over and sew in the same direction. That's my method to prevent wonky strips. Now I've got this really long strip. Mine folded is about 28 inches long, folded. So right at that 28, I'm gonna cut to give myself 2 equal pieces. Here they are. Now I'm not super picky about this, so I just pink shear the ends to prevent fraying and call it a day. Just make sure your straps are about the same length. It's not a deal breaker if they're not perfect, okay? Nothing is a deal breaker. In all of my patterns, there is room to wiggle. I want you to just ease up on yourself and do the best you can with where you're at today. Always, always, for any pattern. Okay, so let's take this overhead and I'm going to attach the ties. You can always trim the ties down later. Don't assume that they're too long. If anything, they'll be too short. You just really, honestly, don't trim till the very end. Okay, so I folded that top to bottom to make myself a centering crease, and that is where I place my ties, right there side by side. I'm gonna put a pin in while I sew these down, and we're just gonna sew right there to attach. Go back and forth a few times here, please. This is in the seam allowance. It will not show later. Okay, so this is the outside right now. Now I'm gonna wrap this up in here and pin this in place, or I'm gonna use this pin. And this is so you don't end up sewing it like a strap down here or something, or up here or over here. We take our exterior and our lining and place them right sides together. Now my exterior is just a tiny bit smaller because I quilted it, and that shrinks the fabric. So I'm gonna look at it from a top view of my exterior on the top, because then I know exactly where I have to sew. Okay, so this is where my ties are. I'm going to leave this side open, like this big of an opening, just so it's very easy to turn. And then we will turn that under on our last step and sew it shut. So I'll start here and go all the way around and stop here. If you want a based stitch in here, it's nice to do because it does train the fabric to turn under when we're ready. So I think I'll do that. Now here I like to use like a scant 1/2 inch seam allowance, just something, you know what, don't even worry about that. Just make sure that you're sewing all the layers. That's what I want you to focus on. Okay, here we go. Back stitch, down to the corner, needle down, lift your foot and pivot. Up to that corner again, needle down, lift your foot, pivot. Needle down, lift your foot, pivot. Coming back around. Here's where uh-oh, did I run out of bobbin? Oh my gosh, I did. Way back here. Okay, now here you can leave it open or you can baste. I'm gonna baste. Back down, and I'm back to where I started. All right, let's take it over here and trim the corners, trim any excess. So here I've got a whole lot of extra on the lining there, so I will be trimming that away. You can use your ruler if you like. Trim the corners, but don't go through your stitching. All right. I like to flip it over and make sure I didn't cut through anything. Looks good. All right, now here's where I base stitched. So I just take my scalpel, get myself a little hole going. Big enough so I'm not struggling to turn this right side out. Oh, make sure you're, okay, so see this pin here? I can feel it inside. I'm gonna take that out so I don't stab myself. And now I'm gonna turn it. All right, and I put my whole arm up in here. And I'm gonna press out these corners. I might need to get my pointy expert point and press tool to get the corners out really nicely. Just, we'll see. Right, looking good. Bring this over. Run your hand or your pointy stick up here along this seam. First, we're going to press everything flat before we try to turn this opening in, okay? You might want to come up to this top seam and kind of push it under with your fingers. Oh, I love this. It's so cushiony. All right, now we'll come back over. Did I veer off here? Let's see. Yeah, it's all right. Good enough for me. My seam allowance, I must have gone off road. I'm just going to fix this part so it's perfectly straight across. See how I kind of went up here? I don't know how I did that. But it happens, so I'm going to fix it right now while I can. Let's just bring it back out, back to the inside out. Yeah, I see what I did there. Okay, so if I line this up on the bottom, I'm gonna mark a line where I need to sew, because I do want that nice and level, and I just did not eye that correctly there. So, looks like, apologize if my head's in the way sometimes. I'll try to edit that out. It's gonna tell myself, okay, I'm going up the line on the cutting mat, and I'm gonna sew right on that pink line all the way across. And you see, it made my case, I don't know, 1/4 inch shorter. I don't care, because I want it to be straight across. That's kind of fundamental. So I love how on a project like this, you can fix it so easily if you need to. All right. Now let's see if this is looking up to my standards. And it's still plenty tall enough to hold my tools. All right. There we go. See how the foam wants to pull this bottom up? That's why you gotta roll it down with your fingers and press it. Because it'll want to do what it wants to do, and you just gotta make it do what you want it to do. And we're gonna sew across there, so it's gonna stay in place once we top stitch. Okay, now I'm ready to fold this in. So I just pull these edges in. I think I'm gonna do it looking at the outside. You'll have to grab that pocket edge, tuck it under. Make sure you've got everything here. And I usually have to fiddle with this a few times to get it how I want it. So just take your time. Sometimes I have to unpin or unclip and redo it a smidge. Okay, there we go. That's looking good. If you need to hit it with your seam pounder before you sew it, it's perfectly fine. A lot of times I'll do that. We have these mallets in the shop if you need one. All right. Let's sew this baby up. Now I'm going to close that opening and then keep going all the way around the pouch. Now you might find it easier to use your stiletto, especially on the opening portion. I love how I can kind of grab that lining and tuck it. Needle down and pivot. Oh, what happened? I picked up a thread there or something. It wasn't moving. Now as I'm coming up here, I'm just gonna push my ties through. All right, let's trim our threads. Where are they at? There we go. Okay. So you can take one tie around the back and leave one up front. You can go around a couple of times, whatever you want to do. If the ties are way too long, now is your time to trim. I like to go at an angle. They do not need to be the same because one goes around the back and one goes around the front. It doesn't matter. And there's our little case. Now you can do like I did on this one where I patchworked. I didn't have a solid fabric that I wanted to use. So I did strips and sewed them together and then cut the pouch at the pattern size. And I had to patchwork this on the inside too because I just didn't have enough fabric. Yeah. There's that. There's that. Let me show you another way we can tie. Keep it around here, whatever you want to do. You can tie it on the side. You get the picture. And yes, I did put a tag on this one. You can add it up here in the corner, you can add it at the opening, you can put it on the inside, whatever you want to do. Isn't it fun in this fabric because it looks like we patchworked it, but it's a cheater print. I just love that. Super fun. And again, put whatever you want in there. I hope you had fun. I hope you learned something. I hope it gives you some confidence to just get in there and sew. Do what makes you happy. Peace, love, sewing.